Picture a contest with exactly one rule. Not who's the smartest, not who builds the tallest cities or the cleverest tools, just who lasts. Who is still standing here after the longest stretch of time. By that one brutal measure, the most successful human who ever lived was not us. It was a creature most people can't even name. One who walked out of Africa nearly 2 million years ago, learned to carry fire, and outlasted our own kind by a margin we may never come close to. This is the story of every kind of human who has ever lived, and the one nobody talks about that beat them all. Because here is the part the textbooks left out. For almost our entire history, we were never the only humans on Earth, and for most of it, we were not the favorite to win. You've seen this picture, a stooped ape on the left, a parade of figures slowly straightening up, until a modern human strides confidently off the right edge, the summit of a long, steady climb. It's called the March of Progress. It was drawn in 1965, and it is the most famous wrong idea in all of human evolution. Evolution did not climb a ladder toward us, it branched like a bush. And on that bush, for more than 99% of our family's existence, several kinds of human were alive at the very same time, sometimes within walking distance of each other. So let's actually meet them. Rewind to 100,000 years ago, and you could have shared a landscape with at least 4 or 5 different kinds of human. In Europe and the Near East, the Neanderthals. Forget the knuckle-dragging cartoon. Their brains were as large as ours, sometimes larger. They hunted big game, controlled fire, made tools, and cared for their sick and injured. Far to the east, the Denisovans, ghosts known for years from almost nothing. A single finger bone and a few teeth. Then just last year, scientists pulled DNA from the hardened plaque on a skull from Harbin, China, the so-called Dragon Man, and finally gave the Denisovans a face. And on the islands of Southeast Asia, 2 human species shrank to the size of children. Homo floresiensis, the hobbit, barely a meter tall on the Indonesian island of Flores. And a cousin named Homo luzonensis in the Philippines, only identified in 2019. There was also Homo naledi in South Africa, a human with a brain barely a third the size of ours. In 2023, a team announced that Naledi buried its dead and scratched symbols onto cave walls. The headlines went everywhere. But when other scientists peer-reviewed the evidence, they were blunt. It simply did not hold up. The marks could be natural. The graves were never proven to be graves. So we'll say the honest thing, it's a tantalizing maybe, not a fact. And that difference between a maybe and a fact is the entire game. But look closely at that lineup and notice who's missing. One human had already been around for nearly 2 million years before any of these cousins showed up, and was still alive, on a river in Java while they came and went. Here is where it gets strange, because by every measure evolution actually cares about, that one human, not us, was quietly winning the whole time. So what does success even mean for a species? Evolution can't see skyscrapers or symphonies. It sees 3 things: how long you last, how far you spread, and how many descendants you leave behind. Score the humans on that, and one name runs away with the title: Homo Erectus. It appeared in Africa around 2 million years ago, and it did something no human had ever done before. It left. We find it at Dmanisi in the country of Georgia around 1.8 million years ago, the first of our kind to walk out of Africa entirely. From there, it reached as far as China and the islands of Indonesia. Its body was a machine built for endurance. Long legs, a striding walk, made to cover enormous ground. Its signature tool, the stone hand axe, was such a good design that it barely changed for over 1 million years. Sit with that. A single idea, useful enough to keep for 1 million years. And then there's fire. The oldest solid evidence we have, ash and burned bone 1 million years old deep in a South African cave, points to Homo erectus. When fire was first truly tamed is still argued by scientists, and we should be honest about that. But if anyone struck the first hearth, it was very likely them. Now the number that settles it. The youngest Homo erectus fossils we've ever found, 12 skullcaps from Gandong in Java, date to between 117 and 108,000 years ago, which means this one kind of human lasted nearly 2 million years. Compare that to us. Homo sapiens has existed for about 300,000 years. Erectus lasted roughly 6 times longer. If the entire human story were a single 24-hour day, Erectus would own most of the afternoon and the evening, and we would walk in just a few minutes before midnight. If watching the so-called winners turn out to be the underdogs is your idea of a good time, subscribe, because that's the whole channel. So, was Homo erectus the apex human? By the only scoreboard that never lies, time, the answer is yes. It crossed 3 continents. It carried fire. It survived ice ages and droughts that our species has never once had to face. By a wide, almost embarrassing margin, it is the most successful kind of human that has ever existed. And we are not in second place yet. We're a rookie who just stepped onto the field. And the others, the ones who lost, most of them didn't simply die out, they dissolved into us. If your roots lie outside Africa, you are carrying around 2% Neanderthal DNA right now. Some people carry Denisovan genes that help them breathe thin mountain air. For these humans, extinct turned out to mean something closer to absorbed. Here's the one thing to carry out of this. We assume that because we are the last human standing, we were always meant to be, that we are the point the whole story was building toward. But being the last one standing has never been the same as being the best. The trophy doesn't go to the smartest or the strongest or the cruelest, it goes to whoever lasts. Homo erectus held that title for almost 2 million years. We've held it for a few tens of thousands, and the clock is still running. We didn't win the human race, we just inherited it, for now.